Starrcade 84 is done and dusted, but I wonder what that means for the future. Well, there's only one way to find out. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself, and you're not. It is November 24th, 1984. Last week in the National Wrestling Alliance, preparations were underway for Starrcade 84, which happened on the 22nd. And if you haven't watched that episode, which I did covering the event, what's wrong with you? Go watch it and then come back and watch this episode. I'll link it down in the description for your viewing pleasure. In the World Wrestling Federation, it was mostly business as usual, as Billy Jack promised he'd arrive this week, while Roddy Piper promised that he'd get a match for Jack and Jerry Brisco against the WWF Tag Team Champions, Adrian, Adonis, and Dick Murdoch. And it seems that Roddy Piper lived up to his promise, considering that match is scheduled for this week's WWF Championship Wrestling, which we'll tune into first. Vince McMahon and the living legend Bruno Sammartino greet us on commentary for the first match, which is a singles match between Mr. X, like from Resident Evil 2, against the Junkyard Dog. Two arm drag takedowns start things off in JYD's favor before he intimidates his opponent with his rabid behavior.
And another arm drag, look at the dog, he's right down on all fours.
Careful, Mr. X, I hear this guy has rabies. The masked man tries to punch the dog, but it doesn't seem to faze the canine, and instead, JYD responds with a punch of his own, knocking Mr. X down. JYD then gets down on all fours and rams his head into his opponent, knocking Mr. X down onto the floor. Once Mr. X is back inside the squared circle, a massive tackle secures the Junkyard Dog an easy 3 count. Next up is the World Wrestling Federation update, and this week's focus is the woman that Lord Awful Alfred Hayes thirsts over every single opportunity he gets. The WWF Women's Champion, Wendi Richter. Lord Hayes states that despite critics stating that Richter would never make it, she has defied all odds and become incredibly successful. Yeah, she's defied all the odds because the victory that she had over the Fabulous Moolah at the Brawl to End It All was a complete sham. The Fabulous Moolah got her shoulder up, yet that crooked clown referee still counted her down and robbed the Fabulous Moolah of the WWF Women's Championship. And if you don't believe me, I'll link that video down in the description below for you as well, so you can go and see the truth. By all rights, the Fabulous Moolah should still be the WWF Women's Champion, not that hag Wendi Richter. Captain Lou Albano was the manager of the Fabulous Moolah during that match, and he's the manager of the competitor of the next match that we're about to see on Championship Wrestling in the WWF Intercontinental Champion Greg the Hammer Valentine, as Valentine takes on Aldo Marino one-on-one. We'll see more of Marino later for all of you Aldo fans that have been asking, where's Aldo? Despite some initial success with 2 arm drag takedowns, Aldo Marino ends up being nothing more than an anvil, being struck by the hammer with a shoulder breaker and a couple of elbows before Valentine puts him away with a figure 4 leg lock. RT Reynolds and Terry Gibbs take on the team of Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo next, and early on, Rotundo is able to secure 2 near falls following a sunset flip and small package combination on Gibbs. A double dropkick from Windham and Rotundo keep them in control once Reynolds is tagged in, and it's not long before Mike Rotundo's airplane spin and Barry Windham's bulldog combination secure their team an easy win. More singles competition is next, as Joe Mirto has the unfortunately daunting task of taking on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who's found a new manager in the form of Bobby the Brain Heenan. The crowd immediately begins to get under Orndorff's skin with their Paula chants.
If they start that Paula thing again, Bruno, that's going to drive him nuts.
But thankfully, the Brain is there to cover his client's ears. Mr. Wonderful does not need to hear that vitriol. It's bad for the pores. Joe Mirto starts the match off by getting Paul Orndorff into a hammerlock, but a nasty elbow permanently turns the tide in Mr. Wonderful's favor. It only takes Orndorff a few moments later to put his opponent out of action with a devastating pile driver. Remember how I said we had not seen the last of Aldo Marino earlier? Where's Aldo, you kept asking? Well, Roddy Piper has heard you, as he has invited Aldo Marino to join Piper's pit this week. But prior to the interview, Roddy Piper brings out an insurance policy in the form of Cowboy Bob Orton, his new bodyguard. You see, Piper has been so concerned with degenerates such as the Tonga Kid rushing the pit and harassing him lately, even sometimes going so far as to physically assault Hot Rod. So, Cowboy Bob Orton has been hired to ensure that no more goofs try to pull a fast one.
Thank you, Roddy. I'd just like you to know it's an honor and a privilege.
And we're honored to have someone as qualified as you in the position, Mr. Orton.
I guess somebody who wears a skirt might have to have a bodyguard.
Oh boy, it's been about a week or so since we heard anybody make a skirt joke at the expense of Roddy Piper. Stop it, Aldo, you're killing me with your originality.
Oh, is that my goodness gracious?
Maybe if you weren't such an idiot, Aldo Marino, you would have been able to take this opportunity and get some much needed exposure. Talk about a wasted opportunity. Dave Barbie takes on Blackjack Mulligan in singles competition next. And as the match begins, Vince McMahon on commentary informs us that in December, Cyndi Lauper, who acted as Wendy Richter's manager and helped Richter cheese her way to the WWF Women's Championship, will be honored by the WWF at Madison Square Garden due to all that she's done for the company. That's fine, as long as she doesn't bring her loser boyfriend David Wolf with her. There is a nice spot in the parking lot that he can occupy next to the garbage with the rest of the trash. Back to the action between the ropes, Blackjack Mulligan is able to knock Big Barbie down with a couple of punches before quickly going on to polish his opponent off with a reverse elbow. When the match concludes, we leave the chilly and cold mainland United States behind for the paradise that is Hawaii to check in with Don Muraco. The Magnificent One has been preparing for his return to the WWF, and as you can see here, he's been training with only the most qualified individuals before his manager, Mr. Fuji, informs us that Don Muraco's return will be sooner rather than later, and I personally cannot wait. The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling is the tag team match that Roddy Piper promised to set up for Jack and Jerry Briscoe last week, as they face off against the WWF Tag Team Champions, Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, in a non-title match. Before I hear you cry and whine that this is not a shot at the WWF Tag Team Championships, I'll once again ask, what have the Briscoes done to earn such a shot? That's right, nothing, and they should be thanking Roddy Piper by kissing the ground that he walks on for this opportunity. The Briscoes spend the early parts of the match trying to keep Dick Murdoch separated from his partner Adrian Adonis, and even try to injure Murdoch's left arm, but the WWF Tag Team Champion is able to catch Jerry Briscoe with an elbow and gets the tag to Adonis, who winds up in a similar situation that his partner did just moments prior. A back body drop from Jack Briscoe dazes Adrian Adonis so much that he tries to tag in Jerry Briscoe, stumbling around in a stupor until he finally gets the tag to Dick Murdoch, who punishes Jerry Briscoe for his transgressions, even getting a near fall on the Briscoe following a power slam. The WWF Tag Team Champions try to go for a double team, but Jerry Briscoe is able to roll Dick Murdoch up, which is thankfully interrupted by Adrian Adonis, before all four men enter the ring and begin to brawl. Referee, send Jack Briscoe back to his corner. No, don't award the match to the Briscoes. I don't care if Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch submitted. Only 2 men are allowed in the ring at a time. I want this referee's license revoked, I want him fined, and I want him suspended. What a nonsense way to end WWF Championship Wrestling. You know what? I'm just gonna tune into Worldwide Wrestling and try to forget about it. Stupid Briscoes. Tony Schiavone and Johnny Weaver greet us on commentary for a singles match, which is between half of the NWA World Tag Team Champions and new NWA Brass Knuckles champion, the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez, as he takes on Paul Kelly. A massive chop sends Kelly down to the mat before Fernandez applies his favorite move, the wrist lock. Once back on their feet, the Raging Loser hits a flying forearm on Paul Kelly to secure Manny Fernandez the win. Backstage, Tony Schiavone interviews the NWA television champion Tully Blanchard, who's dressed like one of the Long Riders in a symbol of Texan unity. Yeehaw! Blanchard states that he and the Long Riders have united against the likes of Dick Slater and Ricky Steamboat. But Tony Schiavone has a counter. A very talented wrestler is making his way to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling soon, and even he may prove to be too much for the unified Texan front to handle. The current NWA North American Heavyweight Champion, Magnum TA.
But I tell you what, Magnum TA, you think about this. People that spend too much time in the gym, Ricky Steamboat, don't get the job done.
Tully Blanchard isn't impressed, and neither am I. Assassin number 1 takes on Jeff Sword in singles action next, as the rotund assassin tries to hide the shame that he allied himself with the now long gone Jimmy Valiant. The Boogie Woogie Maniac himself was sent packing by Mr. Jones at Starrcade 84, and I couldn't be happier. Sword seems to be nothing more than a warm-up for the Masked Man, as he knocks Jeff Sword down with a vicious elbow. Assassin number 1 then hits his opponent's chin with a fist and goes for the pin, but Sword is able to get his foot on the ropes. This happens again and again. And to me, it's not surprising, considering that the 1 in the assassin's name represents how many brain cells he has. Jeff Sword finally fights back, strangling assassin number 1 in the ropes and even getting a near fall following an elbow of his own. This is what happens when you don't have Paul Jones's guidance. The rotund assassin then loses his temper and whips Jeff Sword into the ropes, knocking him out cold with a single punch to get the 1-2-3. Backstage again, Tony Schiavone this time has the 2 losers who walked away with their tails between their legs following Starrcade 84, Dick Slater and Ricky Steamboat. Slater starts off by calling the NWA television champion Tully Blanchard,
You are a rotten, low-down snake in a grass egg-sucking dog.
before threatening Blanchard and his newfound allies, the Long Riders, by stating that if they want to play dirty, well, dirty is Dick Slater's nickname, and he's ready for them. Steamboat chimes in and continues the trend of crying and whining, stating that he's had people gang up on him all his life and he's sick of it.
All my life, it's been 2 against 1, 3 against 1, 4 against 1, all my life! An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
An eye for an eye, sure, but Steamboat better get the tears out of his before he does anything stupid. Avalanche Buzz Tyler takes on Joel Deaton one-on-one next. Tyler gets Deaton into a very tight headlock as the match begins. However, Joel is able to escape by getting to the ropes. Avalanche responds by smashing an elbow into his opponent, which leads right to his power slam and the 3 count. Tony Schiavone is backstage once again, but this time he has half of the NWA World Tag Team Champions and the new NWA Brass Knuckles Champion, the Raging Loser Manny Fernandez, standing by for an interview. Now that both Ivan and Nikita Koloff have completely decimated both Ole Anderson and Keith Larson at Starrcade, Fernandez knows that they'll be hot on his and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes' heels for the NWA World Tag Team Championships. But his faith in the United States of America will ensure that he and Rhodes are victorious over the Russians.
I know that all the American people out here want to stand behind me in what I believe.
What a brain-dead statement. The Raging Loser then brings out another loser in the Pride of the Carolinas, Don Kernodle, and vows to always have Kernodle's back from this point forward, taking it even a step further and vowing to get Don Kernodle's American flag back from the Koloffs for him.
Anytime you go for that flag and you want to get it back, this is the man.
I want to apologize for what I did in the past.
Only cowards apologize for what they did in the past. "You're a disgrace, Kernodle." Don Kernodle even remains on guest commentary for the next singles match, which sees his former tag team partner, the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff, take on Mike Fever. And once the bell rings and Koloff begins to maul Fever, the shame of the Carolinas begins to spout off the same rhetoric that he spewed during his interview with Tony Schiavone.
Every time I step in that ring, I'm going to be fighting for the old red, white, and blue, old glory.
Mike Fever gets thrown through the ropes and down onto the floor, and gets knocked down again as he tries to get back into the ring, until Ivan Koloff finally allows him to do so and latches a dragon sleeper onto Fever. Koloff slams Fever's head into the mat not once, but twice before climbing to the top rope and finishing his opponent off with a clothesline. The NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion and half of the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions, Cowboy Ron Bass, who's accompanied by his manager, James J. Dillon, and his tag team partner, Black Bart, takes on Tommy Lang one-on-one next. Dillon joins guest commentary for the non-title match in an effort to wash away the stink that Don Kernodle left behind, as Lang surprises the Cowboy with a body slam, catching the Long Rider completely off guard. Tommy Lang continues to surprise as he is then able to hit Ron Bass with a reversed elbow, all while James J. Dillon remains calm on commentary and states that there are two types of people in this world: the dreamers, such as Dick Slater and Ricky Steamboat, and the doers, like his Long Riders and the NWA television champion Tully Blanchard. None of them are going to be intimidated by the likes of Dick Slater and Ricky Steamboat, who can only ever dream of accomplishing their goals. Back in the squared circle, Cowboy Ron Bass finally affirms his control over the match by hitting Tommy Lang with a boot to the chest, and follows it immediately up with a power slam, securing a win for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion. Recently, Avalanche Buzz Tyler faced off against the NWA United States Heavyweight Champion Chief Wahoo McDaniel at a local show, and was only added to the ever-growing list of losers that are all talk and no substance when it comes to beating the Chief. Tony Schiavone talks to Chief McDaniel backstage, and takes a page out of biased Bob Caudle's book by flat out lying, stating that Chief McDaniel ran for the hills while facing off against Buzz Tyler.
The question is now, where did you go? I mean, you walked outside of the ring and left.
What do you mean, where'd I go?
He wasn't running, he was catching his breath. To prove my point, we get to see footage of the conclusion of that match where, yes, Chief Wahoo McDaniel did lose, but it was because he suffered a disqualification after dumping Avalanche Buzz Tyler over the top rope and down onto the floor. The duo even continued to brawl after the conclusion of the match, so tell me, Schiavone, how did Chief McDaniel run away scared? Since this fiasco, Buzz Tyler has been calling himself the #1 contender for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. And all the Chief has to say about this:
So you bring it on and try to get me, because I'll tell you, you're going to be just like the rest of them.
With that, we come to the end of another week. A week which saw Jack and Jerry Briscoe become the #1 contenders for the WWF Tag Team Championships, as they beat the champions Adrian, Adonis, and Dick Murdoch. While Avalanche Buzz Tyler just simply decided he was the new #1 contender for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship after he accidentally won a match against the champion Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Cyndi Lauper will be recognized by the World Wrestling Federation for all that she's done for that company in December. The NWA television champion Tully Blanchard stated that he and the Long Riders have formed a unified front in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Roddy Piper hired a new bodyguard in the form of Cowboy Bob Orton, and a newcomer is heading to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in the NWA North American Heavyweight Champion, Magnum TA. Many new faces come and go all the time in professional wrestling, especially back in the 80s when contracts tying a competitor to a single promotion were still in their infancy. But I just have one question. Where's Billy Jack? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. You can easily keep track of who's coming and going by liking the video, hitting the bell, and subscribing. You can also stay informed of everything pro wrestling by following me on social media. That's it for now, so I'll see you next week. So long. By all rights, oh my god, I did the same mistake twice. And head to Hawaii to check on blah, 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 blah.